English translation, 237th contact. Friday, 9th of November, 1990, 23:17 hours.
Wow, it smells fantastic around here. Glad to see you, Lemon Child. You just took me away from the sofa, where I had not sat for 2 minutes and actually wanted to take a nap. But that is not so important, because my joy is much greater than my need for sleep. So I am very happy to see you.
Greetings also in joy, my friend, and my joy certainly surpasses yours, because I have become more aware of your person and origin. Ptah himself has informed me about this, through which I finally know the true reason why you have the mission on Earth. In awe, I bow my head before you and ask you to forgive my ignorance because I did not know your secret for so long. It was well known to me that you embody a special personality, and especially in your original origin, but I did not know the real truth, like many of us did not. Even Ta was no different, and so he acted, as also the rest of us, only according to the advice of the High Council, without knowing the very deepest truth of your origin. But since the High Council revealed the mystery to Ptah a little more than 2 years ago through the advice of the Arahat Athersata level, everything changed. Ptah was instructed by the High Council to at least explain to us and to all spiritual leaders the mystery of your original origin, and if necessary, to reveal the mystery to our peoples. Thus I experienced the truthful connections.
I am a little embarrassed that you speak of me in this manner, because on the one hand, I do not want to make a fuss about it, and on the other hand, everything was so determined from time immemorial that this secret should be kept as long as possible. Only the Arahat Athersata level council alone should decide, if necessary, whether the secret should be revealed. However, this should only be done if an emergency situation would actually require it. But such an emergency situation has now arrived, because you all had to decide again whether you wanted to continue the mission with the Earth and its population, and all the trimmings instead of Asket or not. Because I would not have been able to survive the strenuous telepathic contact with Asket because of my physical breakdown. So you were asked by the High Council whether you would jump into the breach and continue the arduous task. But since all of you were not exactly happy and enthusiastic about the years of often very negative incidents around us, the High Council on behalf of Arahat Athersata revealed the secret to Ptah so that he could tell you what you would have to decide. We know the result because you have agreed to continue the task. However, the whole process required that I too, in our group of 49, revealed some veils around some secrets. So now the group members also know the actual origin of the whole complex. To all this, I would now like to ask you not to think that you would have to behave differently towards me than you did before. And if I am now here in your ship, then everything should be the same here as before. The revelation of the secret should not change anything at all.
But I will not fail to testify to you my due reverence, as Ptah does, as he told me. It is an immeasurable joy and honor for me in deepest reverence to be allowed to meet you at all. Measured by your total age alone, we are all, proportionally speaking, still adolescent children.
That hits the heart of the matter, but that does not mean that I am something special because of it. Like all human beings of the Earth or elsewhere on another planet, my knowledge in everything is designed and developed according to the overall development, so I cannot work miracles either.
That, I think, is an understatement of the facts, because many things that you have done and many events around you over all the past years prove enough that this is different from what you say in your modesty. I think only once briefly of the occurrences with the tree weighing tons and with the coins, into which you have struck your papillary lines, not to mention the coin, which you have made to glow and bend in your hand. Then your shooting skills with the handguns, when, for example, you shot a stamp with a pistol at a distance of over 200 meters. Then the 1-2-ton oven that you telekinetically transported from the kitchen to the street. Not to mention the immense work done and the records written down, etc., which a normal person could never become capable of, in the kind and wise and speed and expenditure of time you have just done. I do not want to mention many other things because it would simply lead too far. I also do not want to talk about the fact that all our peoples profit and learn from many of your works to a great extent, and that the group members of the 49 do not know or even suspect anything about that either. But it is all actually your work, or it is your works that are rarely or never mentioned anywhere. The fact that, in addition to all your immense work for the mission on the Earth, and for the Center and the humans, you still do a lot of work for the spiritual leaders of our entire Federation and for all the human beings of the Federation. Practically nobody on the Earth knows that either, except perhaps a few members of the group of 49, core group of 49. And all this, my dear friend, all this I consider to be something very special, just what you call a miracle, which you are not able to accomplish, as you say. I would not know a single person who could do those things that you have done and still do, quite apart from the fact that our entire people are not aware of any human form of life that is even half as close to your knowledge and wisdom in relation to the knowledge of the laws and recommendations of the creation, as well as the directly related teaching and knowledge of the concerns of the Spirit. On the contrary, I know that even Ta and the High Council will be instructed by you in this regard, and here and there seek advice from you, which you have always kept quiet about. If Ptah had not also revealed this mystery, then we would not know about it any more than we did not know that Nakadamion was the founder and witness of our peoples.
But please enough, because you certainly did not come here to only talk about things that are meant to praise me, and that are actually not meant for the broad mass of the public.
Partially, yes, because I think that you should be rehabilitated from all the accusations of every kind that have come to you, which have hit you again and again unjustly for many years, and which still hit you today, but fortunately no longer from our ranks. Nevertheless, this does not alleviate the injustice that is done to you, and that you simply accept as you have always accepted without defending yourself against it.
Then you act on your own.
Certainly.
Do you not think you could get yourself a reprimand?
No, because we all agree to tell you what I just said. Ta is also in agreement. The self-direction only refers to the fact that the how and when, etc., was left to my own initiative.
Oh well, now I think you have revealed enough of these things.
But there would still be a lot to say.
But I would be happy if you would not elaborate any further on that. It is all kind of embarrassing to me, you know. It is also not worth making a fuss about all the things, even if they are true. It certainly does not bring any benefit.
Maybe it will, because certainly different people will think about it. On the other hand, we need to explain to you that we feel guilty towards you due to all the long years of ignorance and mistakes and confusion and wrongdoing towards you.
Please, Taljda, be sweet and do not talk about it anymore. You know, I am really not resentful, and I am not offended or disappointed in any way. Often I just need a lot of time, sometimes even years, to cope with something and to cope with it. It is just my manner of having to plow through everything to the deepest and millionth detail in order to digest and cope with something. But that does not mean that I am resentful or even vindictive. Even if I get angry, then the anger always smokes again, even if it is not right away in the next second. But even then I am not resentful, because I love human beings, life, all life forms, and know that nothing can be perfect, and therefore mistakes have to be made in order to be able to evolve at all. So it would be completely wrong to be resentful. If one really wants to live and evolve in love and according to the laws and recommendations of the creation, then one must live in love, reason and understanding, and if therefore a human being makes a mistake, then it must be forgiven him or her, because the making of the mistake represents a natural evolutionary process, even if the mistake is perhaps of an emotional nature or of some other kind or form. But if a human is resentful, they not only harm themselves to the depths of their psyche, but he or she also harms their entire environment and disregards the creational laws and recommendations. causing him or her to suffer badly in their psyche and personality, which then leads to the fact that they will also have to suffer physically from any psychosomatic illnesses, etc. that occur. You see, Lemon Child, these are my thoughts and my knowledge, which is why you can trust confidently that I do not need any excuse from you or from you as a whole not to be vindictive, because I am not vindictive without excuse, and I do not think anything evil or wrong of you.
All this is known to us, dear friend, but nevertheless we feel guilty towards you.
Please do not talk about it anymore, because there are important things that should be said. We should really refrain from feelings of guilt and the like, because they have no right to exist in relation to all those things that have been mentioned so far. You see, so it is appropriate that we turn away from this issue and turn our attention to other things. I had to explain that to Ta, and we should stick to that, please. I also have a question which I am sure you could answer, and which relates to something other than these things. Last Monday evening, the 5th of November, something happened in Europe which caused the populations of various countries to revolt. It happened around the 7th hour of the evening that many people were watching a bright, fiery ball high in the sky, moving at breakneck speed from west to east or southeast, pulling a fiery tail behind it. Various observers also said that in addition to the large fireball, some smaller ones had also appeared. A pilot who was flying to Europe via Lithuania in northern Russia saw the phenomenon as well, and drew the attention of his crew and passengers. Of course, among the observers there were also madmen and phantoms who wanted to see everything possible and impossible in the tail fireball. According to the Belgium hysteria with the alleged triangular UFOs, many humans allegedly saw a huge triangular UFO high in the sky, orbited by several smaller triangular objects. One man in Germany even claimed that he had clearly seen an object that looked exactly like the spaceship Enterprise from the TV future series Enterprise. In Geneva, someone had just tested a new video camera in the western sky and recorded some of it on a magnetic tape, which was then shown on Swiss television. I then saw these pictures and realized that it must have been a bigger meteor that had dipped into the Earth's envelope in a flat trajectory, and then glowed, before hurtling back out into space again. This is because it has apparently slid through the uppermost layer of the Earth's atmosphere, such as for example a stone, which is thrown with great force flat on a water surface, and glides over the water and strikes several times, before it sinks into the water, just as it was done with the water slide bombs in the last World War, because large, round and tons heavy explosive bombs were built, which were hurled flat from airplanes into the water of rivers and lakes, towards weirs and the like, so the deadly water-sliding projectiles skimmed like flat stones over the water and often jumped many tens of meters before they reached their destination, exploded and tore the weirs, etc. to shreds. So it seemed to me to be similar to the object that was filmed. Now, however, so-called experts are again claiming that the whole thing was the crash of a Russian launcher. For my part, however, it seemed to me to be something else, a meteor, as I have already explained. With Quetzal, and also earlier with Simyase, I could observe different launcher crashes, and also 2 satellite crashes from close proximity and at distance. In addition, different meteor dips into the Earth's shell, including 4 such dips which only whizzed flatly through the outermost atmosphere, and went out and disappeared again in the world's space. And this is exactly how this object, which was shown on television, looked. It looked in no wise like rocket fragments.
The incident is known to me, and it was actually a meteorite with a diameter of 3.2 meters. We had been observing the trajectory of this meteor for many weeks, and found that it would only graze the outermost layer of the Earth's envelope, as you say, and fly out into space again. It was a wandering meteorite of unknown origin and not coming from the asteroid belt of the destroyed planet Malona. Hurrying through space since time unknown to us, on its path of origin, which was also unknown to us, it got into the area of attraction of the Earth and graze the outer shell, causing it to glow and thus form a tail several kilometers long. By the immersion into the outermost envelope of the Earth, and by the resulting frictional heat, some striking formations of the meteorite were torn apart, altogether 14 of them, which burst off explosively from the main form and burned up as accompanying meteors next to the main block and flew beside it, in order to leave the Earth's envelope again, together with the large meteorite, in order to divide in free space. So it was not a crashing carrier rocket, as hasty ones or know-it-alls want to claim, but actually a big meteorite from space.
A space projectile from the vastness of the universe, if one may formulate it so. But now another question. When Ptah was last here, he declared that he would not come back again for another year or so. That was April 26, if I remember correctly. Unfortunately, he explained this to me in a short conversation we had, which was not recorded in the contact report.
That is correct. Ptah is expected to be absent for 1 year, so until the end of March 1991. He stays in the Dal universe with his daughter Simya-Se, who, as you know, will stay there for the next 70 years or 64 years for the reasons you know. He was only back once for a few hours and on Era, where you reached him telepathically at that time, as he told me. Otherwise, he is absolutely unreachable since the 28th of April of this year, which is why a substitute carries out his work.
Do you have the opportunity to greet Ptah and Simya-Se and of course ask it in Nera?
No, because there is currently no possibility of a spiritual or technological nature to communicate with any human beings or other life forms in another universe.
You mean other universes that are outside of this universe, and thus also universes that are foreign to each other?
That is what I speak of.
We live in a twin universe, and so it is impossible to make any mental or technical, or simply communicative contact with the sister universe, except when a technically founded universe barrier is created, which makes a direct technical material passage possible. Even through such a universe barrier, however, no spiritual or material conscious impulses, let alone forces of any spiritual nature, can penetrate, as I know.
This corresponds exactly to the circumstances.
Good. Do you know a Commander Hatun?
No, why do you ask?
I know from Quetzal that among other things you have the profession of a name historian and know all the names that are known from earliest times. Also, all existing names of today are included.
That corresponds to the truth. But the names are so many that I cannot keep them in my memory, which is why I stored them in a central computer that I can retrieve from here in a matter of seconds if you are interested.
Gladly. Check if the name Hatun exists.
Gladly, wait a moment. Here you see this name does not exist, not even in a form of deviation.
Can you check if a Commander Hatun exists somewhere in the Federation or elsewhere in your area?
Of course I can, as fast as that. But it would be illogical, because there is no name like Hatun anywhere.
Please.
Good. You see, there is no Commander Hatun in the entire Federation. Not even anywhere else outside our Federation. It would be simply illogical, and I do not understand.
I just wanted to make sure. You know, a GG in America claims that he or someone else knows that he or someone else would have contact with a certain Commander Hatun of the Pleiades or somewhere else, but also with Jesus Christ, who under the name Santana, or under some other such crazy name, is supposed to be crazy enough to maintain contact with an uber-mad earthling, to unleash him with half-witted idiocies on the otherwise already mostly sectarianly enslaved Earth humanity.
Now I understand. You speak of that monstrous, deceitful machination in America, which is spread by the mentioned GG.
Exactly, but with that you have already given the answer. It is not worth talking about it any further. I would rather be interested in your opinion on the following. When Nokademion returned from the Arahat Athersata level to the material world in his time, he found conditions on the planets that were significant for his peoples, that were quite devilishly similar to the political conditions that prevail on the earth today. The countries had degenerated into monarchies and dictatorships and other unfair regimes. Many countries fought each other, murdered and enslaved, tortured and exploited. Nacademion did not take long to establish a multinational peacekeeping force, which was built in such a manner that each responsible country maintained an armed permanent army of a certain strength of combat-capable men, at its own expense, which was only intended to create and maintain peace in combat-capable form on all worlds. However, each army of a country was only just large enough to ward off an attacking enemy, but no revolution or war of aggression could be waged against another state. The total number of combat-capable men of all armies of a planet amounted to 3 million men, distributed on all countries involved, which were individually, however, trained and armed according to a uniform system. These multinational peace combat troops were under the direct command of the Multinational Army Command. If an unrest, revolution, or fratricidal war broke out somewhere in one country, or if one country attacked another, the red button was pressed on the multinational army leadership. This meant that the command was issued immediately, that so many men of the multinational peace combat force appeared together at the scene of the revolutionary or belligerent events, within 24 hours and in one fell swoop, in sophisticated coordination, and put an end to every revolution and every war within a few hours, by force of arms, in completely logical consequence of the application of the law of self-defense. Hesitant and indecisive and false human actions were never tolerated, whereby such sloppiness could not come to light. As is happening, for example, in Iraq right now, whereby here too, indulgence is completely wrong, because only logical force could have solved the problem in a matter of hours. The Earth human, however, is already so effeminate that he or she can no longer think clearly, and thinks that such an action is anti-human, and therefore unhuman. But this is not the case, because it is precisely those who are in truth effeminate and inhumane, and therefore unhuman, who are vehemently opposed to such actions and procedures. If such a multinational peace struggle force were to exist on the Earth, then, depending on the case, so many men would be thrown into the respective trouble spots that a threefold superiority of men and war material over the rioters would arise, whereby all madness of the madmen would be nipped in the bud. However, the manner in which Earth humans of today think and act in softness, hypersensitivity, and false humanity, peace can never arise and be preserved, because madmen and power-hungry people are always there.
What you tell me is known to me, and I know that peace was actually created through this method at that time. But in the course of time, people softened and abolished the army of multinational form. As soon as wars broke out again over the worlds, and power-hungry people rose into the governments. This then lasted for tens of thousands of years, before the same system was introduced again 52,000 years ago, with a multinational peacekeeping troops. Then it lasted 67 years, after which there really was peace actually prevailed everywhere again, which has been maintained until today, not least because of the multinational peacekeeping troops, which have been an integral part of our entire Federation ever since. Weapons may only be manufactured for this troop and for leisure purposes, whereby, however, the hunting and killing of animals of all kinds is forbidden, as this, unfortunately, does not apply on the Earth. Animals may only be shot in our Federation in self-defense or in their form that impairs the environment. The so-called illegal black market or private trade with weapons of any kind known to you is not permitted, but every person has the granted right to possess and use one or more weapons in a legal form. If the weapons are registered in a central computer and checked for their respective individual characteristics and features, whereby it can be proven at any time where and when and whose weapon was used. In addition, it is so important to us that any weapon can only be used by the owner, as their personal swinging wave is necessary to use the weapon at all. Although this is not yet possible on the Earth and will not be the case in the near future, a suitable control could nevertheless be carried out.
Which would be very necessary. But also this topic we should leave now, because I have still something else which should be brought to word. You telepathically told me that you wanted to tell me something about the future that would move you a lot. The event could not be avoided, but you would simply have to get rid of your knowledge, so to speak.
That corresponds exactly to what I have explained to you. So I want to get right to the heart of the matter and announce to you an event that will take place next Wednesday, as a result of which many humans will die.
You should not deal with such things if you cannot cope with them. On the other hand, I must confess to you, I also have difficulties again and again when it comes to digesting such things.
Unfortunately, I had to deal with it inevitably.
Then let us hear what you have to report.
It will happen next Wednesday. Approximately 50 people will die in a plane crash in the Zurich lowlands.
Where and why? And which date is Wednesday?
The event will take place not far from Weihach near Stadlerberg, which you know very well because you have often been there. The date will be the 14th and the time 2013 hours. The reason for the crash of the Alitalia plane will be that due to a technical failure of the altimeter, the pilot will fly his flying apparatus too low and it will therefore crash at Stadlerberg.
And as usual, this cannot be prevented.
Unfortunately, but nevertheless, I want to do something about it so that this event does not happen.
You are illogical because you know very well that such things cannot be prevented. You have to learn to cope with everything.
That is what I try, but I do not succeed.
I know, it is often very hard to know what is going to happen in the future and which cannot be changed. You are helpless and powerless, doomed to just wait and see and let everything happen as it just happened in the prediction. Especially when it comes to people's lives, everything gets devilishly difficult.
So it is. That is exactly what depresses me so much. But if the same thing happens like this for you, then I will try to get myself under better control. Therefore, I would like to deviate from this topic and talk about something else. At the beginning of your contacts with Simya Ase, you wrote a circular to the earthly governments and universities and sent it by mail. In this letter, you warned according to our order against the CFC, which destroys the life-protecting ozone layer. This CFC now, I have to inform you, has for several years now had a further destructive effect, which is of very detrimental effects on all life forms of the Earth. Thus, our research and investigations for many years have shown that the CFC also damages the entire plant world and is also decisively involved in the death of trees, in addition to the other toxins that were once mentioned to you, such as the lead of gasoline exhaust gases, etc. Our research has now revealed that the animal world and the rest of the plant world are also damaged by CFCs, whereby the human being of the Earth itself is also affected and is malignantly affected by CFC-induced health damage. In humans, this poison gas triggers many forms of allergies, some of which even lead to death. It also triggers asthma-like respiratory problems, leading to asphyxiation, in addition to various types of cancer directly related to CFCs. New life in the womb is also adversely affected by this malignant substance, not to mention the human and animal brains, where the CFCs cause various disturbances in the normal functioning of the brain, resulting in confusion that leads to delusion, and even murderous Ausartungen, actions resulting from having gotten very badly out of control of the good human nature.
Then it would be possible that those spun-out humans who commit mass murders in an attack of delusion, that their brains are damaged by this CFC, as may perhaps also be the case with animals if they attack more human beings and tear them apart.
Certainly, that is so. However, other factors also play a very dangerous role, such as the preservatives and coloring agents, as well as flavorings of a chemical nature in food. And last but not least, sex and religions are also decisively involved because they drive people into a confusing fanaticism through their madness of false doctrines, whereby I speak in this connection of those incidents in which sectarian machinations lead to death, murder, and crime, as well as to exploitation and enslavement.
I would also like to mention the radioactive fallout of atomic bomb tests and nuclear power stations, as well as the use of artificial fertilizers and other chemicals around the world, which certainly do not contribute to the health of the human being, animal, and plant life forms.
These things also apply.
That is what I thought, and the Earth's scientists know that, as do the governments, but nothing is being done about it. On the contrary, it is still being rumbled around in this deadly form, just because some big ones earn their good money with it, as they arrange it with regulations. For example, when an obligation is issued for moped riders to wear helmets from now on. Of course, such a helmet offers a great safety for the user, but there is also a profit aspect behind the whole thing. Those who, for example, issue an obligation for crash helmets are somehow connected with such manufacturers and collect a lot of money there. Also with the army, the same game steps into appearance, because if so, for example, new army material is bought, then some proponents and mediators skim off, etc., the thick cream.
These unfair methods of the Earth humans are known to us, and thus your words correspond to the truth.
Unfortunately, we cannot change anything, because the citizen has become too lax and does not only let himself or herself be led around by the nose, but is also cheated and beaten over the ears everywhere where he or she should actually defend themselves. That is why it does not really make much sense to talk about it any further. I am also interested in other things at the moment, such as whether there will be snow in the near future, or whether the trembling weather forecasts of the Central Swiss and Mortathal weather forecasters, who are always mistaken every year, will finally come true. So there should be a warm winter with little snow.
It will get cold, and a lot of snow will fall. Not only in Switzerland, but also in other countries. The snowfalls will even have devastating consequences in some cases.
At least something. Is there something extraordinary somewhere in the next few months?
Perhaps an eruption of the volcano Unzen about 40 kilometers from Nagasaki in Japan is extraordinary, because this volcano has not been active for about 200 years and is now awakening to activity again. This will be around the middle of May.
Well, at least something here too. Now I want to ask you about whether you maybe want to drop in on the 6th of December, because we will once organize a collective group Santa Claus Day, respectively a Santa Claus evening.
You are talking about St. Nicholas Eve, yes?
Yes, that is what we are talking about.
If that is the case, and if the whole group is actually together that evening with St. Nicholas, then we will not miss it. Maybe we will also record everything.
Your words sound a bit unsure. Is it not yet certain that you will really be present?
You have a very fine ear. In fact, I cannot tell you yet that we will really be present. But how did you notice that my words contained uncertainty?
The tone of voice.
Then I was not mistaken that it was your fine hearing after all.
Right. But now a question about the meteor. I want to know at what height it shot past and at what distance you could see it from the Earth.
At an altitude of 91,000 meters, it passed by and was visible over a distance of several thousand kilometers.
This coincides approximately with the findings of expert observers. But now I have a somewhat delicate question, which refers to Mikhail Gorbachev, the president of Russia. Does he belong to the troops of the mission-bound? And what do you think about the fact that he is so badly played along by his enemies of the CP, Communist Party? Although he is the real reformer, who has not only pulled Russia out of the evil of enslavement and exploitation, but also many other countries of the world, because he has set a very good example. I think he has done the best he can so far for the good of Russia and its people, and for many other countries and people all over the world. That is why I think it is absolutely inappropriate that he should be brought into distress and soon accused of treason, as I have calculated. In particular, uneducated louts from the population are teasing and rushing against him that he is too lax in his revolutionary efforts. which is why power-hungry Communist Party fanatics take the opportunity to work against Gorbachev from this side as well. This is just as unjustified as the louts from the population, who have no idea what Mikhail Gorby has actually achieved and is actually doing in reference to the possible. The screamers and other louts, who in many cases are still secretly incited and controlled by the West, and especially by the USA, demand more than Gorby can give and achieve at once. It is not taken into account that all evil lasted for many decades, and that it cannot be put right and made good in one fell swoop. Gorbachev really does his best to the best of his knowledge and belief, and to the best of his ability. I simply find the hammer and boundless wickedness of the lame-headed idiots, who know nothing about politics, and of the CP fanatics, who still want to force the Russian people back under the CP's thumb with all their might, to be ascribed to him for his incompetence and betrayal. I think that Mikhail Gorbachev must still be glad in the end that he can get away with life at all as a thank you for his immense efforts.
He actually belongs to the mission-bound ones, and he acts according to the released impulses, which became effective through the peace meditation. Unfortunately, you're only right with your remarks too, and your words also correspond to my opinion if I have nothing more to say.
Also good. Surely you can tell me who will be the great boss in Poland in the upcoming elections. I think it will be the hypocritical Lech Walesa, who first claimed that he would never apply for the high office, but who is so power-hungry that he does not even notice that he presents himself as an illogical liar all over the world. I find that he is not only seen as a lover of power, but also as a liar and an intriguer. A lurker.
These are your words, but they also correspond to our meaning. So I can abstain from another word.
Maybe it is also better if we drop these topics. Otherwise our enemies and envious people will claim that we are race-hostile and politically ambitious. You know for sure how illogical many Earth humans are, no matter whether they are simple workers or those who wear doctor's hats, or whether they swing sweeping names and job titles. Envious critics and sectarians as well as know-it-alls are also among them.
There is no need to comment on this truth. Besides, my friend, it is time for me to go back to my work, because I still have some tasks to do that have to be done in the next 3 hours.
Night work, yes?
That is so, but now you have to go back. Goodbye, my friend, and greetings from everyone to you and all group members.
Oh yes, that is what I should do, also from dear friends in America. We have them there despite all the difficulties and lousy machinations and lies and deceptions of certain elements there. I am also supposed to order greetings from various friends in Japan, New Zealand, and Australia. The same applies to different friends from Germany and Guatemala, from Brazil and Argentina, almost from half the world. I am sure there are about 90 people who have sent me greetings for you and, well, when will Quetzal appear again? Would it perhaps be possible for you to intervene with him for me, because I would have something to do or ask for which I might need his help?
In the name of all of us, I would like to thank you for the greetings and also return them. I can visit Quetzal in about 12 days and tell him your wish. Maybe I could help you with your questions and the rest?
No. Unfortunately not, because they are mathematical question formulas of that kind, which should reach out into higher levels, and which in my opinion can only be handled by Ptah or Quetzal. Of course, there are at least 29,000 spirit guides in your Federation who are capable of doing so, but I do not know who I could commission or ask, because I do not know them personally.
I understand. Unfortunately, I really cannot help you in this respect, because such matters extend beyond my knowledge and abilities.
That is why I am asking for Quetzal, whom I would like you to inform that he calls me.
I will do that. Goodbye, my friend. In the near future, I will visit you again.
That pleases me. Goodbye.